Welcome back. You're watching Roundtable and we are speaking to Mr. M.M.Zuhair, former Member of Parliament and Ambassador to Iran. And also, we were in the middle of the discussion and we referred to the agreement that the TNA and the retired general has had, and the fact that TNA was not pleased with the discussions they had with His Excellency the President and asked for conditions which the retired general agreed to. And you also said that these agreements, the negotiations, the public has a right to know, and you were basing the conversation on an interview given and voicing the conditions the TNA has asked for and General Fonseca has agreed. So starting from there.
Yeah, in fact you will find that in this, according to Mr. Sambandhan, General Fonseca has agreed to amalgamate the North and East. Now there is a huge problem in doing that. Namely, the East comprises of Tamils and Muslims who are both opposed to merger. This is very clearly evidenced from the fact that the Chief Minister and also Karuna and all these other factors which came in during recent times, they broke away from the LTTE mainly because of their fact that the North was trying to dominate the East. Now they want to be more free and independent. So the question of a referendum is vital, or to ascertain the views of the people. General Sarath Fonseca has not made any reference, nor is Mr. Sambandhan making any reference to any process of obtaining the will of the people of the Eastern Province, whether they wish to amalgamate with the North or not. Now this is a contentious issue for the Muslims of the East in particular, who feel that they have a 33% political demographic representation at the moment, but if it is amalgamated they will be reduced to a weak 17% entity, and they will not want to be a third class, if I might say so, citizen to be ruled by another minority.
Now, Mr. Zuhair, in the times of Mr. Ashraf, and at the time you were also a Member of Parliament, I think, the SLMC also advocated for a separate area in the East, right? So, in that context, why is the...
Right. Now, at that time, you will know that in 1987, the Indus-Sri Lanka Accord was signed by Mr. Jayawardena and Rajiv Gandhi, which amalgamated the North and the East. And then there was a clause to say that there would be a referendum held to separate that if the people of the East do not wish to be amalgamated with the North. So Mr. Jayawardena, the then President, has already amalgamated that. And then in that context, the SLMC at that time said, we don't want to be ruled by the Tamils, right? We would like to be more independent. That is how the question of having a separate area where the Muslim predominant areas to be separated and brought under a separate administration with a council of its own. Now, which is, I think, what the SLMC led by Mr. Ashraf at that time talked of. But that situation has changed now. There is no LTT and there is no amalgamation at the moment. The Supreme Court has made a decision in a bench chaired by former Chief Justice Mr. Sarath Silva himself, where they had delinked the merger and they are now two separate councils. So now the need for such a division does not arise at all. It arose out of the situation at that time where the Muslims wanted to be more independent from Tamil rule, if I might say so.
Right. So, and also, what can you say, Mr. Zuhair, about the Tamil community and their vote in the North? What are your opinions about it?
Yeah, in fact, I would like to mention that before coming to that, I don't know how long you have, but some are counting these Tamil votes as coming to the UNP or the opposition candidate on the basis that at the last election there was a boycott and they did not vote. But in simple terms, I wish to underline this fact that almost at every presidential election, except for one, the voters of the North and the East have voted mostly for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and not for the United National Party. The majority votes have been in favor of the SLFP. Now, if you take the 1982 presidential election, for instance, Mr. Hector Kobakado got 77,000 votes as against Mr. Jaya Jayawardena, who got only 44,000 votes. If you take the 1988 presidential election, Mrs. Bandaranaike got 37% as against Mr. Premadasa, who got only 28%. Then if you take 1999, of course, where there was a boycott, in 1994 there was also a boycott, and also 2005, you will find Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga got 96%, as against Mrs. Sirima Disanaike, who got only 1%. Now that, of course, because there had been a total boycott as well, but taking that into consideration as well, you will still find the majority have been for the SLFP.
So this is based on the statistics you are doing.
Yes, and also you will find 1999, Mrs. Bandaranaike got, Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga got 52,000 votes, as against Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, who got only 48,000 votes. So you will find that almost all these elections, though if you take the most of the elections, over 400,000 people have voted. If you take the Jaffna alone, a substantial number of votes have voted, and more than 50% of the votes of the entire North End is in the Jaffna district. Nearly 650,000 votes, registered votes. And if you go by Jaffna results as well, you will find almost in every case there had been, the votes have been more in preference to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. And there was one case that I want to specifically mention, that I remember the 1999 elections, where the SLFE got 47% of the votes, and Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe got 52%. I think that's one of the exceptions. But in the subsequent election, where a new candidate came, like Mrs. Disanaike, who was the wife of Mr. Gamni Disanaike, of course a well-known politician, but still she was able to get only 19%, as against Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, who got 80%. Now you see, when you have new candidates who are not known, the Jaffna voter is very intelligent. He is not going to be so easily misled merely because the TNA signs agreement. The TNA agreement is only for political purposes of the TNA. But the people of the North, if you go there, you will find what they are looking for is development of their area, which have come under tremendous damage during the war. And the government is also committed to that, and has already started reconstruction, redevelopment work. People are looking for that, and also re-establishing the road network, the telecommunication network, the telephone network, and also providing for hospitals and schools, and not political confrontation. What Mr. Sambandhan has signed is an agreement for political confrontation, and I am surprised that people like Mr. Rauf Hakim is still continuing, even after, if what Mr. Sambandhan says is correct, that there is going to be amalgamation, if he is going to still support amalgamation without the consent of the people of the East, I think he is betraying the interests of the Muslims of the East. In addition, you remember the interview, that famous interview that General Sarath Fonseca gave to the National Post of Canada, where he said that this country belongs only to the Sinhalese, which I know the majority of the Sinhalese do not support that position. They go by the Constitution. They agree to that. I don't want to take much more of your time going into those details, except to say that the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress has also will not be able to, together with the TNA, they will lose their political clout and political strength in this election.
Yes, we were speaking to Mr. M.M.Zuhair, former Member of Parliament and former Ambassador to Iran, and also a President's Counsel. So he was also bringing to light many concerns, and he highlighted on the confusion that is prevalent in spite of the prevalent agreement between the TNA and the former retired general, and the fact that there's nothing to that mentioned in the manifesto, and JVP saying that it is not there in the manifesto. So the confusion. And and what he was saying is the retired general should make a statement public so that the public will be aware of that. And he was also referring to the SLMC, how it might lose the political clout it has, because if they are also supporting this alliance, then they are invariably supporting the TNN stance, and he has a question with respect to that. So those are the main concerns that Mr. Zuhair has brought to our notice in a more analytical sort of way. So Mr. Zuhair, thank you so much for joining us and giving us information and your analysis on the take of the events that are happening now. And thank you for watching us. Do join us tomorrow at the same time. Have a good night.